Tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Paul McMahon, I'm the chairperson of the board, and this community board represents quite a large geographic area, and we stretch from the confluence of the Styx and the Puhara Kikanui and the Waimakariri, all the way down to the confluence of the Opawaho and Otakaro, and down into Woolston, and represent some of the most challenged communities and some of the most interesting communities across the city. If you'd like to join me in our opening karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te tū, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hei ati ana te atukura, e tio, e luka, e haupunga, tihei, mauri. Thank you, everyone. And we have, I don't know if we have any apologies. There's Jackie is online, but she apologies for lateness from Jackie. Would someone like to move that we accept an apology? Moved by Greg, seconded by Joe. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Any declarations of interest to make? Okay, no declarations of interest. We'll move to the confirmation of the previous minutes. Moved by Greg, seconded by Kelly. Well, that was lightning quick. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And we have no scheduled public forum attendees and no deputations and no presentation of petitions. So we will move to our briefing from Adam, who's here about the wastewater treatment plant. A reminder, as usual, that this is not about this is about the operation of the plant and not about any of the issues. Go to Adam. I believe you've been up.
Yes, sorry. Yes, got one child with me. The other one's off swimming. So if you see Andrew Crossland come in, encourage him up here. We're supposed to be here, so yeah, chat with him when he starts up. Adam Zeus, manager of the treatment plant. Thank you very much for having me at this monthly update. So I provided a presentation which I'll run through. I'll run through it and then take the opportunities for the questions at the end, and happy to dive back through the presentation. So obviously what's quite topical is for the month of May, I'm aware that there was a number of odour issues coming from the treatment plant, which I'll go through in a bit of detail. I'll also provide an update on the rodent control, which came out of the community's meeting a while ago. Also update on the observation ponds on the air edge status and midge control and the odour products trial. So as you're aware, we've still got the 4 community monitoring stations out there in the community. And again, all those update fortnightly and update onto the webpage. The 5th monitor that was requested at the neighbours of the community treatment plant is underway, and I'll touch on that later. So that's in the process of being ordered. It's on its way across the board, and as soon as that arrives, we'll be sticking it in, and you can expect results to go up in the same manner as which they're going up, and they'll be going forwards. So yes, that's what it looks like. We're just finalising the appropriate location on Shortland Street with the consultant. So for the last month, so this is the 4 community monitoring stations, and as you can see, there is a sort of consistent intermittent odour that's been coming through. That's for the last week of May, but that's also reflected in the earlier weeks period as well. So that's the same graph on the right. What I've brought up here is to show how that compares to the graph on the left last year over the same time period. So last year, the summer to winter transition period wasn't significant. It was less than the year before, so we had no reason to believe that the summer to winter transition period from April and May wouldn't have been anything different. However, as you're all aware, that's not the case. Just before I get onto that, to provide the update, our pest control contractor confirmed that there's been no increase or notable uptake at the number of bait stations, which have been positioned along the fence line across the back of the old City Care depot, which parks currently occupy, and the adjacent Shortland Street. Parks have agreed to pick that up for us and will continue. So there is an increased number of base stations down there, and they're keeping that level of monitoring on that up. What I suspect has happened is that we missed the initial exodus when they knocked the buildings down, because there's nothing been at the time. Obviously, that's impacted the community, and we've got base stations down, but they will remain there. I'm not over the detail, but Parks are obviously doing quite a bit of construction in that area. Moving back to the ponds, aerator status, we are still struggling with the apex aerators. That is the running for the past 30 days for the disc aerators. So these are the horizontal ones that push the flow around. If you concentrate on the green arrows to start with, the contractor had 1 month, 1 day's worth of proactive plan maintenance on the 21st and the 22nd of May. All of those other red areas across disc aerator number 2, disc aerator number 3 at the start, and then disc 1 and 5 later on. Those are the reactive breakdowns. So that's where it breaks down. Call the contractor out, they come, reinstate it. The latest report I have is for the past 3 days. So basically over the weekend, all of those aerators are up and they are running. The vertical shaft aerators, these are the ones that push the oxygen in to make sure it's plenty of oxygen in the water, which holds the odours at bay for pond 1. You can see on the same 2 days, the contractor went through and did all the planned maintenance across all of those aerators. So what we're over for the month of May. So what we're well aware of is the ponds go through a big transition period from summer to winter. In summer, it's nice and warm, lots of biological activity, lots of algae, lots of high dissolved oxygen levels, next to no odours. In winter, it's nice and cold, very minimal activity, generally no odours. However, as you go from summer to winter, there's a massive change in the biology. So what usually happens? It usually happens in late April and is all over and done with by early May. The ponds turn from being green from all the algae to sort of black or brown. So the algae has died off and the dissolved oxygen level drop. But it doesn't matter about the dissolved oxygen levels dropping because there's minimal biological activity in there. So that's what normally happens. Aerial image there of pond 1 shows it's a nice black, and that's what we're expecting. However, ponds 2A and 2B, which is the closest ones to Shortland Street, so Shortland Street, and that area is just off to the left of that photograph. Ponds 2A and 2B have particularly struggled through this transition, and it was not expected compared to previous years. So as you can see in the aerial photograph in the bottom right, pond 1, you can see it's a nice black colour, whereas ponds 2A and 2B has gone cloudy and milky. So image is slightly better on this one. So previously, when ponds have struggled, we've isolated the flow going to it because the flow that's going to it has typically been higher biologically loaded or organically loaded than what was in the ponds. So rather than add to the load, we bypass them. However, in this case, we've left pond 1 flowing into pond 2A, which then flows onto pond 2B, because looking at all the samples, it suggested that the load that was causing the odour in the ponds was already in the pond itself and was coming from the sludge at the bottom of the pond, which wasn't expected. So if you have a look on that image, at the bottom is pond 1, which is nice and black, and you can see the channel on the right-hand side as it's going in. It's nice and black and clear, so it's actually going in and diluting the load in pond 2A. So previously, when we struggled in that transition period, we bypassed the ponds that are struggling. In this, didn't want to, because if it's struggling, it's potentially only going to get worse and go stagnant. So it's better just to leave what was there going in. So the clarify work that was undertaken over the summer, which finished in March, meant that the temporary activator sludge plant was reduced to 50% capacity, reducing the additional load to the ponds. We didn't get significant odour events at that time because all the aerators in pond were working hard and there's a load of algae in the ponds, given that's the positive dissolved oxygen levels. So it was that load that passed through pond 1, through into ponds 2A and 2B, that went into there and settled down and stayed at the bottom. And it's that we believe was breaking down, causing this odour in this summer to winter transition period. The photograph you can see there, so the flow enters pond 1 in the top left-hand corner, and you can see as it sweeps down, there's a slight discoloration coming through, but as it works its way through, it's clear. And if you have a look, ponds 2A and 2B in the top there, they look nice and clear and black. Hence why, at the time the Clarify shut down, we didn't believe it was a significant issue. The odour monitoring that we've done has confirmed what we know is that ponds 2A and 2B were the source of the odour. And now that we understand why it's happened, we can put measures in place to try and stop it happening again next year. So that is some of our hydrogen sulfide monitors, which is located there at the end of pond 2B next to the state highway. And all those points coming into it, that shows where the odour is coming from to be picked up by that monitor. So we have prepared a whole list of standard operating procedures so that next year we've got a whole list of procedures to follow. So standardising what we're doing, the pond monitoring operation. We already had that, we've just updated it to reflect what we now know. We've got a standard operating procedure for operating the drone. So before it was an interesting piece of new equipment, we were using it. Now that we've worked out what it is, how useful it is, we're just standardising that process. We've got an additional Pro DSS instrument for the ponds. That's my engineers playing around with that. Tell me it works. And we've also got a standard operating procedure for the pond operation for summer to winter mode. Again, we've had that previously. We've just updated it to reflect what we know now. What else are we doing? In the photograph on the right, you can see a new aerator that we put in. So that replaced it. So in the photograph on the bottom right, in the bottom right of the picture is the aerator in action, which is that one in the bottom left, which replaced the two broken ones that's in the top left photograph. The photograph on the bottom right, you can see how much more efficient and dynamic and how much is pushing that flow around compared to the aerator further up on the left. So what we've demonstrated is that aerator is a lot more efficient and effective compared to the other aerators. So what we've done is we've taken the concept that works, which is that one, gone to the contractor and said, look, here's the problems that we've got in 2A and 2B, what can you do? And they've done this model here, and that's where we are going to get 3 additional aerators. So these disc aerators will support the short circuiting and reduce sludge deposition and support treatment performance. The aerators will provide additional aeration, which hopefully should reduce the intensity and frequency of future odours, and it will support sludge volume reduction through maintaining a positive dissolved oxygen level in the ponds. So the more dissolved oxygen levels in the water, the more that helps break the sludge down quicker and sooner. Disc aerators will also allow enabling works on the CWTP when it's required to be on partial bypass for future capital delivery works. So we've done some temporary repairs on the clarifiers. We need to do more clarifier repairs on them next summer. We believe that by putting these additional aerators in now, as soon as possible, that will help break that sludge down and also prevent this for next summer as well. So the contractor has been very kind and delivered those aerators to site before we got the financial funds fully done and approved. However, I have had it confirmed that these will be fully funded from the activated sludge plant programme as enabling work to make that happen. So already here, I can't get them in any quicker than what they will go in, but they're already arriving on site. The water quality flow variation. So all the data that we collect, we've got a few meters out there. They have to be go around by my engineers and collect regularly, or a lot of the other data my engineers have to go around and it takes a number of hours to do. What we've come up with in the top left-hand picture is a series of jetties and areas where we can mount instrumentation in to get real-time information from a number of equipment. So there is a concept sketch in the top left. We've now had those all fully done up into civil drawings, so in a position to be able to give to our contractor. So they're underway and working through procurement at the moment. The prototype instrument is exactly what it is. It just shows the type of instrumentation that's going to be installed on those things. And on the aerial image and the bottom middle is just the indicative drawings of where the electrical connections are going to have to go in. So it's not as easy as just putting an instrument out. There's quite a lot of infrastructure that has to go in for that. So project has been progressed from the concept to the design drawings. It's been transferred from led by us across capital delivery. Timeframes currently being reviewed, especially around the civil, structural construction, the power connections, instrumentation. And the external visibility of that data is being covered as part of this project. So how can we make more of this information readily available outside of operations? The odour products trial, as you're aware, we've had a number of suppliers contact us and say they've got products which could alleviate the odour issues. We're still pressing ahead with 4 of those suppliers. Stage 3, which is as a mock-up in that picture there. So we have 5 of those intermediate bulk containers, running 2-week periods 3 times to try and assess how effective they are. That trial, stage 3, is going ahead between May and August. All the suppliers have provided responses to the re-engagement letters, and we're just waiting for the final supply project to be delivered. So all the equipment's set up there, ready to go. We're just waiting for the final supply before we can run the trial. Additional information that's going on, we've had a number of staff changes that occurred, with additional resources dedicated for the new ingoing activated sludge project as we ramp up towards delivery. So a senior project manager being appointed along with a principal operation liaison engineer. So the senior project manager is to work around, provide support into that project to make sure it goes ahead, and the operation liaison engineer is to make sure that operations is fully supported, embedded, engaged, and all the feedback from them into the design is being incorporated. The grounds maintenance delivery on the CWTP ponds and adjacent paddocks will be changing from the current external contractor model from the 1st of July. So previously, all of our in-house landscape maintenance was done by an external model. From the 1st of July, that will change. What I'm hoping we will see is far more responsiveness and a far better improvement in the public image around the site as well. So that's what I can say at the moment. I'm hoping the next couple of boards will be able to give you an update, and I'm hoping that update will be coming from yourselves in saying we've noticed a change and improvement. Also, we're in the early stages of co-funding a PhD student to undertake a project on the ponds relating to the sludge accumulation, reduction of that sludge, the midges, how they all interact, and also the greenhouse emissions as well. So we're in the early stages of that at the moment with UCAN.
So, thank you. Thank you, Bill. Great.
Still no Andrew Crossland, apologies.
Right.
With the new aerators, will they stay in ponds 2A and 2B in summer, or will they be shifted to pond A now?
No. So despite the issues you've got on pond 1A, they do maintain a positive dissolved oxygen level, and that's been shown by our site monitoring. With the pond 1 has not been a significant source of odours for a while yet. It's pond 2 and 2B, 2A and 2B are the ones that are struggling at the moment. In previous years, they haven't struggled. It was only this year because of how much load we added into the ponds. So these aerators are going to go in there. What I envisage you're going to do is they'll go in over the winter period and into spring before the next summer period. They'll go in there, they'll move the flows around, they'll increase the dissolved oxygen levels and help break down the sludge level that's already there to make it less volatile. And then they'll also be left in there for about another 2 or 3 years whilst we have to do essential bypassing work. So we've still got to remediate to the clarifiers. When we time the new activated sludge plan, which is 1st of November 28, there'll be times when we have to bypass and send flows around to be there. And then I also anticipate leaving it in for a year or 2 after that to treat the load that goes through. So reality, 2030 on pond 2A and 2B, I can see we're also moving these across to pond 4 as well from maybe 2030 to 2032. So we'll be moving around, making full use of them, and the where's it go? Just using this one where the instrumentation's going in, and we've got a lot more data where we move them to. We'll have a lot more real-time information to make those decisions on.
Any further questions? Yeah.
Thank you. When was the additional odour monitoring device ordered?
Couldn't tell you off the top of the head. We'll get that information back to you.
Okay. And do you know when the first, just was kind of check when the first week started from that new monitor will be likely?
As soon as it arrives and gets in, and there'll be a couple of weeks after that.
Okay, so we're still some time away. I guess what's concerning for me is that the spike is getting up to that, you know, the health, the maximum health limit. So I'm just wondering if there's been any feedback from residents or complaints or any information given around just checking in on people as to what they're experiencing.
Not from myself and the operations team, but I can make inquiries with the rest of the council.
Do you know, like, have we got a number of complaints, or can we find out if we've had
we can get that number of complaints. Yeah.
As well. I think that would be useful. So, I mean, in the past, I know you're more operational, not like it's psychosocial. So this is kind of the problem, but this is really the only chance we get to raise these issues. So yeah, I mean, thank you for the work that you're doing, and it's really good to know that you're learning the lessons as you go through, so that obviously we discover more. I guess in terms of the data that we've got, the previous presentation you had some other kind of statistics or data about the problem. So there was some other figures, numbers, percentages, I think, of what was happening. Is there any additional data other than the H2S that we could provide the community to show what the trends are?
We collect an awful lot of data to make and inform all these decisions. It's as to what sort of data you sort of want to make it useful. So the odor one is what the odor specialist. I mean, when all this happened now, aware of the site's resource consents, which says you should not have a offensive odor at or beyond the site boundary. Right. So I understand that, and if you operate the treatment plant for that, you mainly do it. With this whole field of monitoring odor within the community is completely new to us. I'm sort of out of our hands. That's where we engage a consultant to get and do that and provide all the information, the charts, the graphs. This is all provided to us as it is. I wouldn't really know where to go if you want any more information other than you put it in a request and I can go through the process and provide that feedback. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
There are obviously other component chemicals to the smell, but the dominant one is the H2S. But I assume that the levels of like methyl mercaptan are nowhere like they were.
Oxygen, I think, was one.
So we can measure dissolved oxygen levels in the pond, yes.
Yeah.
But what we found is, and this is what confuses us, is even though the ponds look like that, they had a positive DO level. So pond 1 had a pond dissolved on. Previously, when it smelled, the dissolved oxygen levels have been generally below 0.1. Whereas in this ponds 2A and 2B, the dissolved oxygen level is still at 0.3, 0.4. So it's still 400% above the dissolved oxygen level of what we'd expect urges to be generated. So that's what's really confused us. So even those parameters of what you've got, hydrogen sulfide is easy. If it's up at that level, you can smell it. With dissolved oxygen levels in the pond, it doesn't necessarily mean that because the dissolved oxygen levels are not going to smell.
I just remember the first presentation that we gave to the community, which Helen Bowman got up and drew on the whiteboard, and she drew like these kind of, circles and put some numbers around some percentages of different things and some measurements, and kind of explained it really in quite a complex problem quite simply. And maybe that was just too simple. I get it, it's complicated, but it was helpful to know kind of where we wanted to go in terms of a target and where we currently were. Yeah. And I guess just people being able to see the trend around those key outcomes that we want is quite useful.
I mean, for DO, ponds 2A and 2B are still in the green. For the entire month of April, they were still in the green at the dissolved oxygen level, even at the odor pond.
I guess the thing is that without the context that we get in these presentations, it's very difficult to communicate, because if you show the trend of like hydrogen sulfide and dissolved oxygen, that what it will show on the trend line now is that it's different to what it was the previous year. So without the context of the presentation, it's not going to provide much information.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that, but I think it's almost getting to a point where we're getting a similar issue that we have with the organics plant, where the community is saying one thing, the data is showing, something else. And so it's how do you get more data to kind of understand what's happening in a way the community.
So just clarifying, like the data shows that there has been high levels of hydrogen sulfide, which is what the community is experiencing. So I don't know if it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's some dates where it is, but the reason that the community wanted an additional monitor is they were concerned that the monitors that we currently have weren't capturing the data where they were being impacted on. And so that's why I was wondering if there was any additional thing, given that we've got still quite a time frame to go before we get the new monitor. But yeah,
well, we look forward eagerly to the new monitor.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? Tim, sorry, I had Tim and then Joe.
Just wondering with the time frame from when or how you know there's a problem because of the smell. Is that from the tools you're using? Was it from people ringing in? How did you first find out?
We picked up on our site monitoring plus the community complaints plus our community monitors as well.
So if in the night, well, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I smell something.
Yeah.
Can I sort of alert? If it's early, can I alert someone to know so that you can get on?
So you can either snap send solve, which will come through to CCC, or you can contact ECAM.
Okay, so they'll get through to you pretty quick.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, thanks, Tim. Joe?
With the additional loading, how often or frequent does that happen?
So that's part of the capital delivery programme at the moment that's going through. We will have to do, if you remember from my last presentation where we went in and we fixed the channels around the outside and we had to replace the seals. For this is now to go in and take an entire tank offline and replace all the metalwork inside it. So that will be probably for about the same duration as what we did in this summer over the two. So this time we fixed 2 seals around the 2 tanks. This time we're going to take 1 tank offline and replace all the metal internals of it. So I'm anticipating the same duration of what we've had the previous summer.
And that will happen for the next couple of years until you get online properly?
So we've got the 2 clarifiers at the moment that are acting as clarifiers. So we're anticipating we'll get 1 done this summer, the other one maybe next summer. But then we'll still need to retrofit the 2 aeration basins back into clarifiers before the new activate sludge plant can be fully commissioned.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Anna.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks.
Any work?
So, if you got those questions, can you send them through to me?
If you guys have got any more, please table them on.
Get responded to. Awesome, thank you very much for your time.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, oh yeah, we just received that we received the report. Someone like to move that? Yep. Moved by Kelly, seconded by Greg. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, thank you. Thanks for reminding us. Toby, we have the tree planting in Arden Reserve.
Welcome back. Thanks. Good everyone.
And very pleased to be talking about another reserve.
Yeah.
All right, you want to talk us through it?
I do have a presentation.
One moment, sorry.
We will.
I suppose if you want a presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's a pretty.
Kelly does, but I think that it sounds like that people would. I think, imagine there'd be some questions about shading as usual, but yeah, no problem.
Maybe when does category square start?
I have to check with the planting team.
See an email.
Yeah. I can talk a little bit about that as well. Good everyone, so I am here to talk to you about Arden Reserve and their park for the urban forest tree planting program. Oh, awesome. As I mentioned, this is part of the urban forest tree planting program, which is part of the implementation of the urban forest plan, which has a focus on increasing canopy across the city, with a specific focus on also increasing canopy cover in our parks up to 40%, providing a forest patch network across our city with Indigenous planting dotted around the place. Trying to increase the visibility of Indigenous species, and also part of this is planting and planting for trees at their maturity. Couple of quick facts, or a few more than a couple. This is our second kind of full year of the planting program for our parks. To date, we've had 58 parks planting plans go out for consultation. We've had 33 of those plans approved. We've got another 17 awaiting decisions. Our planting page has received around 18,000 visits, so it gets quite a lot of traffic. Through the planting program, we've had over 1,500 new specimen trees approved. we've had 32,000 square metres of native revegetation approved. We've got another 14,000 specimen trees awaiting decision for approval and another 34,000 square metres of reveg awaiting decision. And all of this is in addition to our normal replacement program. So this is outside of our normal 2-for-1. This is all additional. So thank you all for helping us get this through. As with all the other parks, we're following some guidelines for our planning. So we're using the recession plane model. Recession plane is essentially we use an offset from a boundary and determine the height that we can have to try and manage shading and impact on neighbouring properties. We plant back from boundaries, so at maturity the canopy doesn't overgrow. We have offsets from paths, underground surfaces. We're trying to increase native re-veg and those sorts of things as well. For Arden Reserve, so consultation was out from the 6th of March to the 24th. The landing page received 408 visits at that time and 68 people viewed the Arden Reserve page to review the plans. We have flyers delivered to all the neighbouring properties and signage with QR codes. Just a little bit of a make-up, just some, I suppose, the design thoughts that went into the park on the left there, but it's also in the report. It was from the landscape architect. Proposal will see 30 new specimen trees, sorry, not 40. We received 3 individual submissions. 2 felt that the plan was right. 1 submitter didn't feel that we got it right, with one of their concerns being the surveillance, passive surveillance into the park. And I've kept this fairly brief. So if the plan is approved today, then we will be ordering the trees straight away. It's likely that the planting won't occur until next planting season. And as with all of them, we encourage community to come and help us plant the trees.
Cool. All right. So, any questions for Toby? Joe?
Thanks, Toby. I see one of the people that didn't agree wanted to see the existing, something done with the existing poplar. Were you going to do something with that?
So this, we will go and inspect the poplar tree, but this program isn't about existing trees and inspections. We have in some places incorporated tree removal with planting for long-standing issues where it's been difficult to find a way forward. So we've incorporated that into it to provide a full plan, but in general, no, the focus is on planting.
And there was a mention of maybe some fruit trees. Would you consider that?
We would consider it. Fruit trees, there are challenges with fruit trees, which we're trying to find a solution for. The big challenge with fruit trees is maintenance of them. Fruit trees generally require a different type of maintenance to a normal tree. They require regular maintenance. They require fruit to be picked up and things. Unless you've got a group that are dedicated to doing that, it's not something we're generally resourced to do. So fruit trees are bred to focus on fruit. They require certain maintenance because they do generally get pests and diseases and things like that. So having a fruit tree that's not well maintained can actually cause issues for other people in the nearby with their own fruit trees. I'm saying it's not a yes at the moment. We would need some kind of community feedback or a community.
But you're willing to work with the
absolutely.
person that said no?
Yes. Yeah, I think if that's the person who's already,
You put in them.
Yep. Oh, that was that person, their main focus. They had fruit trees, but it was also about passive surveillance from their property. So we'll work with them and adjust the trees to work with them. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Toby. Greg?
At the moment, the path through there's got like a heavy layer of algae through there. With the extra tree canopy going in, is that going to be something that's going to be taken into account, that it's going to be more shaded, so more likely to become a slippery hazard?
We have some setbacks. So we have the 3 metre setbacks, which means we don't have as dense a canopy. Yes, there is a risk that that you can increase shading on your paths.
So at the moment, it's particularly bad
Yeah.
from the northeast corner path as you go in there. It's
Yeah.
particularly bad across there.
Remember, these trees, it's going to be 30
Oh, it's
years
gonna be a long
before.
time.
Yeah,
At the
and
moment,
things
it's
change
really
there, climate and things change as well. So I can take a note of it. We can look at it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's particularly a fig tree right at the start that's at the moment lost a lot of fruit onto the ground. It's very slippery going through that corner, which sort of counters Joe's thing. There is one tree that doesn't make sense to me, which is again in that sort of northeast corner. There's a two-story property that has a large balcony, and while it's still sort of 10 years away before that tree gets into that thing, the house is completely designed with the view of that park. And it's a rather large tree that's getting put right in the middle of that.
The one just on the northern side of the playground?
No, so if you look on the eastern side of the picture, there's a green roofed house and there's a large tree right in front of it.
I don't have the coloured aerial. I can certainly look into it. Oh, yeah, that one there.
Yeah, that one there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's like a balcony right across the front of that property.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just that property currently has their main view from their upstairs property over the park. Again, it's part of that surveillance space, but it's also their outlook of the whole design of that house is built around that, which is going to have a large tree right in front of it. So there's the ability to remove that or make it smaller and be outstanding for that.
I think if we made it smaller, it would block the view more. So you can look at removing it. It's a bit of a dangerous area to get into if we start going, okay, we're not going to put a tree here because you've got an outlook of the path of the park. We tend to not do things for that reason. We do it to allow some passive surveillance, but if we start going, we're not going to plant trees because you've got a nice outlook on the park, we suddenly lose all of our trees in our park. So I'm a bit cautious about taking that precedent, but it is your decision, so you can put that forward if you like.
All right, any other questions? All right, no other questions? Thank you, Toby. I know we've got, I was just talking to members. Members, is there any, anybody happy to move the staff recommendation? So moved by Celeste and seconded by Alex. All right, any debate? No debate, okay. Then, if there's no debate, I will put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. All right, thank you. So now on to item number 9, which is what I think are the very sensible parking restrictions that have been requested by local businesses on Pages and Road near Breezes Road.
Well, it made a lot of sense to me, so I'll just move it.
I'll second it. And seconded by 2 board members. Is there any debate? No?
Just a comment. While you're painting lines and stuff, could you please remove the lines where the old mobile library from 30 years ago, Breezes Road by the dairy is?
I'm not sure if we can make changes. Yeah, I'd have to investigate it.
Can you take it away with you though and get it done?
It could come through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, you might just grab it and give it to him.
Just throw some paint over you.
Yeah.
Just flip me an email and I'll pass it on to Nick.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Or
Yeah, moved.
it's been moved and seconded. Do you have debate?
Just a quick question.
Okay.
Cool. Just wondered, we've got the P60s proposed. So I wondered if we needed to have a look at night time as well. Right. Just aware that some people might have community meetings that might go longer than 16 months, for example, at the church.
There's no church there.
Sorry.
Not that side of the road, buddy.
No, it's not. I know, but I'm just wondering, like, if people have meetings, you know, if there's other stuff happening at night, how, like, we've got the P60s. I'm just wondering if it needs to be all the time, or whether we thought about just having it during the daytime only.
The concern raised was from businesses that operate between 8 and 6, which or 9 and 6. So that's the standard parking restrictions operate between 8 and 6 as well. So yeah, that's what we've recommended. But
Oh, okay, just on the sides, it's just only got the P60, so that's why.
yeah,
Okay,
but
it will be up to 6.
8, 6.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for the clarifying. Right. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, thank you. And now we move on to the item we've all been waiting for, the New Brighton Grant Marine Parade.
No pressure.
Which I'm sure will not. So if you would like to point us in towards anything you'd like us to know, then we will take it from there.
For sure. First, kia ora koutou. It's my first time here, so a quick intro. My name is Nick Caddo. I'm a new project manager in the transport team around these parts. I am trying to fill Shalene's remarkable shoes and get Marine Parade continuing to roll down the line. So just to quickly run over what we're looking at today, we are confirming that new location for the crossing point that came out of the scheme approval back in December. That was sitting down at the bottom of the north ramp car park access and has shifted south down towards the bus stop and Hepuna Taimoana. And also approving the detailed traffic resolutions for the project at large. If this goes through today, we've got a small minor change to the cycleway that needs to go back to council under delegations. Just out of the safety audit, there's been a small change there, and then planning to head to construction from there, sort of around September is where we're looking at the moment. We've had a couple of questions come through in the last couple of days. First, about going back to spokes and sort of closing the loop there from a cycle point of view. We have gone back and since had a chat with them. They've raised some concerns around cyclists not having right of way at the bottom of that north ramp car park access. Also around the sharrows, those painted on-road ones that they kind of go past the speed limit change of 50k. We're not super concerned about that because on the west side of the road where they're talking about, there's a fair amount of room. There's that flush median sort of space between where cyclists could go in the parking. It's just a short stretch of road to get them to use that crossing point. And then also a question around the speed hump on the north ramp car park access. This is one that's come out of the safety audit process, just to sort of slow vehicles down for that conflict point between the vehicles and the cyclists and pedestrians. Then around the landscaped island, again at the bottom of that car park ramp, that's it's still there from the concept that was approved back in December. The trees have just been placed there sort of to help us line up with that 2-for-1 CCC tree policy, just kind of offset some of those ones that are coming out for the shared path further north. I think that's it. We'll take it as read. Happy to go for any questions.
All right. Any good question? I think Celeste had her hand up and then Joe.
Thank you and welcome. It's very exciting to have this come back to the board. A couple from me. In terms of like one of the things that came out of the consultation and just general feedback from the community has been around people set up picnic tables on the current shared path. And it's a bit of a problem because obviously there's an access issue there. And when it gets wider, it might be even a better space for people to set up picnic tables. Through the design process is what we looked at. And when I looked at the design, I just wondered whether we could flip the yellow lines. This might not be possible, but do you think it would be possible to put the yellow lines on the side with the shared path and then have the parking on the side of the trees? So we reduce that conflict. Is that something that could be looked at?
I don't see why not. As long as we're, I guess, maintaining the same amount of space, then we're not losing any, which we could take that. We would just have to come back for another report.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to delay the process, but at the same time, it is our one chance to get it right. So can we, at the end of this, set some advice on what it would look like?
So I will note, like, this is, given that costs have continued to escalate. We haven't got much money at all left in the craft project. We don't want to delay it. Like, we might be able to find a way around it, but let's not let any changes delay the implementation of this project.
It could be something that's
Yeah.
monitored post-implementation. If we
Yeah.
find behaviours aren't what we would like to see, then we
Yeah.
could maybe come back and
Yes.
have a look.
Yeah, because it's a quite fairly minor switch. So the key thing would be just to look at what's possible and back. I wouldn't, I'm not saying report, I'm just
Yeah.
saying we could get some information back.
Okay.
My other question was, then what happened to the pedestrian crossings? Because I know there was some feedback around those. I just can't recall last year. Was there a decision to not progress those?
So there is still a painted pedestrian crossing on that south leg of the Hawke Street Marine Parade intersection. I think there's been just sort of
Yeah.
a change in where the plan has cut off at the tail end of this report, but that one is still there.
Yeah.
Unsure about the painted ones elsewhere.
So as far as I'm aware, because I wasn't involved in option A and B, but there wasn't any formal zebra crossings. That they were just the island crossings where people don't have priority. And again, it's something that could be monitored. So if we're getting a lot of activity at the Hopwells crossing, then that's probably where we would look at investment, because they aren't necessarily the cheapest crossing types. But we have got the cycles there too. So if we're identifying that people are having to wait a long time to cross the road, then that would be somewhere we could look at in future as part of the minor safety program. But further up we go, there's probably less crossing demand. So drivers aren't necessarily seeing people crossing there all the time. And sometimes we get some complacent behaviour.
And just finally for me, I think the crossing points that I have had a lot of feedback in is around Thompson Park. Because you have a lot of people going back and forth to the toilets and across, and that's been one that I hear a lot about at the moment through North Beach residents who live on the road and they go to the park, it's playground of course, and then they go across. So just would be interesting to see if we can, like you said, look at that maybe down the track if that was an option, or potentially if there was that 100k left over, which is obviously not enough to do the project, whether we could maybe do some improvements to this based on the feedback. Is that potentially an option, and would we need to move a resolution for that? We would, okay, so maybe we'll come back to that once we've heard. Thank you.
Right, Joe.
Okay, yeah, with the crossings, with the zebra crossings, I thought they were a cheaper option to just paint the lines on the road, is that not right?
No, generally with zebra crossings, we have to ensure lighting's compliant as well for priority outside of daylight times. So the lighting upgrades as well as the road marking. And NZTA did change their guidance a couple of years ago that really any zebra crossings, unless they're in 30km/h zones, should have supporting traffic calming, because we are aware that drivers don't always stop. And if they're travelling at speed, then it becomes a crash risk for someone on the crossing point. So, I mean, there are options around them. You could look at kind of low cost speed humps in advance of the zebra crossing and things. But yeah, generally our cheapest crossing points are your pedestrian islands that just kind of sit on top of the road.
Okay. And I did put in a question about the pathway going up to the ramp. Whether we could look at doing this as part of the project with the cut down onto the actual ramp itself.
Yes, so that one sits within Parks land rather than in the transport corridor, so that doesn't fit within the boundaries of this project. The speed hump's gone there as part of that, and with the cycleway going in for the project.
So the ramp entrance is Parks anyway, but we're doing that, aren't we? Because it was initially when I brought this up, it wasn't part of the scope, but because it seems to be within the scope now.
So we're just trying to address the crash risk issue at the driveway entrance. I think Nick can refer that concern and issue to the Parks team for them to look at. It's just, we're looking at just the real bottom end around where we're trying to minimise.
Just seems like the ideal time to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we can get information back on that under the same as the thing that Celeste has raised without delaying the resolution. Any other questions? No other questions? All right then. Do you have another question?
No, I was just going to say, in terms of the resolution, can we just take a moment to put that in? In terms of using the remaining budget, would that be a sensible thing to do?
Well,
through Would that be a sensible thing?
No, we don't have information. So we have,
Sorry, just
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
back. I think once this is resolved, then staff will, and
Yeah.
they've paid out for the project. Other than what has been estimated in the staff report, staff will then come back with the exact figure to the cent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the board, because of the previous resolution that you made, will have to potentially revoke that. If the board wishes to allocate it somewhere within the craft boundary or along the Marine Parade Street.
yeah, so we can't do anything with that now because we don't have the required information. We will get a report that will provide a decision. And, you know, then we can have whatever discussions prior to that. But it would not be judicious of us to try and allocate or preempt that.
So just to make sure I understand, because this was probably our last chance to ask these questions. Things like the yellow lines in particular, which is a fairly minor adjustment, if that looked like a possible thing to do, could that be done before we go into construction, or would that have to be done at a later date? Switching those around, for instance.
I think if we go away and look at it, we could respond in an email or memo to show the parking changes.
Yeah.
Because then if you do decide, I mean, we start construction September.
Yeah.
Like, we've still got another month to bring a report back to the board.
Okay.
But if there's quite a substantial parking loss,
Yes.
we'll flag that
And that's fine. It
straight
wouldn't be-
away. Yeah.
I think I'd be interested, it's just the minor.
Yeah, so we can do a pros and cons,
That
like,
would be great.
before and
Thank you.
after, whatever.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Have you guys know what you're looking at? Because I don't.
yeah, so in the, in
Just three parking.
in the off-street parking areas, next to the shared path is whether we can flip those car parks to the other side rather than being against the shared path.
Look, okay, I see, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All
Yeah.
right.
Put in all 6 bays.
No, it's number 3 and 6.
No, it's only in 3 bays. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant, thank you. And the pedestrian crossing will be later on, potentially.
Yeah, we've got some.
That, great, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
That's great, thank you.
Would someone like to move that recommendation? Then moved by Celeste and seconded by Tim. Is there any debate? So the mover is able to speak first if the mover would like to, and then other people.
I think we've probably said enough about this project over the last few years now.
Indeed.
I think the key thing for me is actually thanking staff for persevering with this. I know it's been a tough project, various reasons, and you know, I think that the work that's gone on behind the scenes is really appreciated. And then the other thing is I'd like to acknowledge the board. I think we've come to a really good pragmatic outcome, which I think is just going to be great. And also to those that have submitted on the project, I think this is a really good example of where the community is involved. We get that feedback and we pivot and we come up with an option that does serve the majority of people. Obviously, not everyone's going to be happy, but that world doesn't exist in local government. So, but I think that this overall is delivering on all the things that we heard about, and I think it's a really great project. So I'm pleased that we reached this point at long last.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise a concern about the speed hump up into the ramp, with the gear trailers and ambulances going up there. I think it's not required and it could cause more issues than non-issues.
Right. Anybody else wish to speak? Well, I'm just going.
Can I make an amendment to remove it?
Well, you can move an amendment. But we have the substantive. So you're moving an amendment. So you'd need a you'd need a seconder to move an amendment. What's your amendment?
To remove the speed hump on the ramp?
Is there a part of the resolution that you wish to change?
It would be in number 4. That's the only reference to the traffic calming, but you.
So number 4, so that would be, so you'd amend that to say,
as attachment A excluding.
attachment A in brackets excluding the speed hump at the entrance of,
Right.
to the ramp.
Are we able to have a comment from the staff on that?
We are able to get advice because now we have something which is different from the resolution that they provided advice from. So we'll pause that. Do we have? So, but first we need a seconder. So we have a seconder. So move. So this is the amendment. So that's a pro forma. All right. Can you provide advice on why your recommendation was to have the hump and what the consequences of the amendment would be?
Okay, so the reason for the speed hump is that this is I guess the main area of conflict on this pathway. So anticipated families will be riding along the shared path, and then they're into the two-way cycleway. This is where we've got multiple vehicles coming in and out. And we know that we need to have slow speeds, especially where we've got two-way cycleways, because people don't necessarily always appreciate that someone's coming from the wrong way, if that makes sense. And I guess with the families, if the children are riding slightly ahead, we're asking them to give way to vehicle traffic. Should there not be a hump and someone comes out their driveway quite quickly, then, there's a risk of a collision happening. The speed humps aren't as severe as the speed humps within that car park. They are backbreaking. It's generally more of the standard 75 mil gentle speed hump that you see on the road. It's not
going to be a question of mine. It's because I was imagining, that they might be severe, but if they are just an easy reminder that you're at a conflict point.
We've racked our brains to try and find other examples of two-way cycleways with a give way and the only one I can think of is on Collins Street, and that has quite a large area of textured paving with a hump up into it, and that's the only example I can think of in the entire MCR network.
Okay, that's good. So, question?
Yep. Is it possible that a stop sign at the, just before the hump, could be put in? Because I see it as stop for cars coming out onto the road, which makes perfect sense, but would it be possible to, wouldn't you sort of alleviate the need for a speed hump if you had a stop sign at the beginning of the cycleway, so before a driver gets across the cycleway?
And that gives priority to the cycleway effectively.
Yeah. Which seems to make sense to me.
You could, it's whether how well people actually do that, I guess.
Yeah, so if we were to install a stop behind the cycleway, we would remove the giveways on the cycleway, because otherwise we create a stop giveaway control that as to who then has right of way, and that think, especially for our younger users, they're not necessarily going to understand. So we move the stop line to the road, and the priority sits with the driver at that point. The other option would be to remove stop from that point, put it behind the cycleway, and let the cycles have priority at that point, which is pretty consistent with that.
The other thing, just to ask this, would you put up a sign being aware of cyclists for people coming down the pit?
Yeah, we will always put up our permanent warning cycle signage for drivers exiting at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't. I do think it's like if you come out to a cycleway and you're not being aware of cyclists, the sign's probably not going to make a difference. But it's so Jackie, I think, has a question. Jackie, oh, I can't hear you. Sorry, Jackie, we can't hear you. I don't know why.
Do some sign.
No, you're right. Yes. This is right. I'm sure as usual, it would have been a great contribution. Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Okay, no further questions. We'll go to debate. The mover of the amendment is Joe, and the seconder, was Kelly. Would you like to,
It's just the debate really is to do with the amount of vehicles that we have going up there, like the emergency ones if you need an ambulance. And of course the gear trailers, because they carry a lot of quite top class gear up there as well. And they take, you know, yeah, I just can't see there's any advantage having a speed bump on the way up.
all right, anybody else wish to speak? Celeste had her hand up. Celeste and then Kelly.
I mean, my paramount concern is making sure that people and kids who are crossing along there, it's quite a very busy bit of footpath, and there'll be more people travelling along there. Don't get taken out by a car that's exiting or entrance. I think with emergency services, the best thing we can do is stop them turning up at all. So if they have to go over a speed bump and a small one at that, it shouldn't be a major issue if we stop accidents in the first place. So I think it'd be a shame to do a last minute to think something that is actually quite important in terms of risk.
Kelly.
I of course disagree. Yeah, look, I think the way that looks to function, that whole intersection, I think is actually really good. I really like the onus being put on the cyclists to stop and be extremely careful at that point. I think the speed hump itself is a bit unnecessary, given I think that most people will be coming out to an area where cyclists will be crossing. They'll be aware that it's more complicated than in the past, and I think that it's a bit unnecessary, but happy to go with what the board decides.
All right. I am going to vote against this amendment because I will admit if I'm wrong about this. But my inclination is to think that we're better to put in a physical reminder that people need to be careful, because sadly only about 30% of people read signs, and it's a conflict point. And the advice we've been given is that this is the best, most practical way of doing it. So I'm happy to accept staff advice, but also happy to admit that if it does cause a bunch of problems, I will say, okay, well, I was wrong about that, but I'd rather take the risk to, because cyclists are vulnerable, much more vulnerable than vehicles, and also particularly vehicles moving slowly can harm a cyclist. Whereas, I just think that's where the emphasis should be. And I'm glad that it's not going to be a huge one. It's just going to be a gentle one. So unfortunately, won't be supporting the amendment. Does anybody else wish to speak? I will put that then. So this is the amendment. So all those in favour of the amendment?
Aye.
Against? No. Abstentions? No. Okay, so I think that and Jackie, was that against? Okay, she gave us a shake. So that has not passed. So now we have the substantive. I'm going to put that now, because I think that this has been, as you said, Celeste, this has been discussed well and truly. And I thank everybody for the constructive part that over what seems like quite a long time. But we're here now. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right. Thank you. And thank you, staff.
Next good.
It's only 2 years.
It was longer than that.
Was it really?
Where were you last time?
Yeah. Oh, so you guys had started without me.
While you were taking the slow.
I think it was.
While you were taking a break.
But I did not adjourn the meeting, so I'm not sure why members have left the seats. I will adjourn the meeting just because members have left their seats. So.
What?
I think that's bringing too much.
Hello, hello, hello. 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 Hmm.
Right. We are back live in New Brighton and North Korea. Actually, probably not North Korea, but the democratic process. North Berlin. All right. So we've come to item number 11, which is the Build Park Tennis Club Discretionary Response Fund application.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move 11 and 12.
You'd like to move 11 and 12. And seconded by Greg. Is there any debate on either of those? No. Well, in that case, motion will now we put all those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you on behalf of the Build Park Tennis Club.
Motion 13 up, but
No, you can't do that yet. It's not even on the table. Well, yes, no, but it's so we're not at 13. No, so we've got we have item number 12, which is the youth service. So we moved it. Oh no, we moved it. Sorry, it's passed. Okay, now, well, given the nature of it, I would prefer that you're not. So you can, because that's your right as a member to foreshadow something. But we need to. I think it'd be better to get staff advice before you do that, and then because you don't like there is a staff recommendation. That's we don't have to move the staff recommendation. You can move something else, so you don't need to. But I will give you the first call. So afterwards, you've got your hand up essentially, right? Yeah. Okay. Now I'll just speak to this briefly before we do. Is that when the recommendation came out to have 15 days, I very strongly disagreed with it and suggested the compromise of 10 days. And I think, personally, I think that the staff recommendation is fair, given the timeframes involved. And Cindy will provide us with information as to why and how that works with the timeframes. I really strongly support members being able to use notices of motion and petitions and things like that to take initiative. It's not, obviously not all of those things are good or constructive, but that is a good way of people being able to do things. And I would very strongly oppose anything that was going to change that. In fact, when I came back after being away to local government, I found that the CEO had been given vastly more powers over notices of motion. It was quite frustrating. to me to see that. I will add, the additional thing that's been added is that the CEO can actually can allow, at discretion, can allow things that aren't going to take the time, don't need the advice, can. Doesn't mean will, can. And, so it's a lot more lenient than what was originally being proposed at the 15 days. So
I've just got a few pointers just to say. So just following on what Paul said. So the recommendation is for 10 clear working days, but the chief executive, using her discretion, will allow a shorter time frame dependent on the content of the notice of motion. I've been provided with a list of some advantages associated with the 5 days and the 10 days. So for a 10 days, a notice of motion gives adequate time to ensure that the requirements for the decision-making act are met and that sufficient council officer advice can be provided, manages the impact of existing workloads and work programs for the organisation. So that's just not me, that's actually the other officers working on that. Transparency, and allows for advice to be provided to elected members in a timely manner, and if accepted, for the proposed motion to be included in the agenda. And just for an example, I will share with you a little calendar screenshot. So, for example, this is where we are today, and this is our next meeting in July. If a notice of motion was submitted 10 working days, so this bright yellow here, I have not 10 clear working days to get the advice before the agenda goes out. That's 10 working days before the meeting. So I've got, what's that, 7.5 days, give or take, because I need to get the agenda out before 5 p.m. So although it says 10 working days before the meeting, to actually collate the advice from council officers, to then submit it to the chief executive for her approval, that in theory is 7.5 days. Were of the mind to keep it at 5 working days. That gives me 2 days tops, 2.5 days, depending on what time of the day that comes in with your 5 clear working days. So I just wanted to highlight what it looks like with 5 and 10 days. Bear with me for a moment.
Yes, I got a question why you've got that up.
Okay.
If that's possible.
I can put it back up.
I mean, because those timeframes are really looking at if someone submits on the 23rd, right? And that's 1 day out of an entire month.
So this is going to be the same every month. We meet once a month. We have a decision meeting once a month.
Yeah.
So dependent on the day or the month, the time is still the same.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're looking into, this is all the way up to here, up to the 5 days is June, and then from here onwards is July. So it's the same process, same timeline, no matter which month the report would be.
10 days is 10 days in both June and July.
So for another community board, they'll meet on a Thursday, so their colour charts will be somewhere different, but the principles are the same.
Yeah.
Can I just make a quick comment while it's up as well, because it's relevant? One of the things that I would suggest while you're looking at it, regardless of the timing that you're putting up, the earlier that you're thinking of putting a notice of motion in, talk to us, because we'll help you shape up what you're asking for as well. So don't leave it to the 10 days or the 5 days, whatever you decide. I just want to make the point now while it's up because you'll have a better chance of getting a notice of motion accepted and receiving really good advice the earlier that you start talking about it.
And just following on from what Chris has said, for example, the signage at South Shore, that could have been dealt with, or it was dealt with in the end, just via an email to the relevant staff member, and we got a response and an outcome before the notice of motion went anywhere. So if you engage with us, but to be fair, staff were still waiting on a response back from a previous email, so
Yeah.
so then just in relation to the 5 days, the chief executive may decline it, just because there is insufficient time and it might not necessarily meet the requirements of the Act due to insufficient information, can impact on workloads and programs. Timeframes for the board to also consider the information and would be inconsistent with the council's amendment to their standing orders.
Most councils currently 15.
They've
moved to 10.
compromised to 10.
Yeah, so I mean, and I'll add, and I know it's unusual speaking at this point, but that that we want and principle, we want good, effective, informed notices of motion. Like if something, as I said before, I want members to be able to do them, and I'd like them to be able to be implemented. And this reaches that balance, I think. I was initially, I was quite surprised, shall we say, but I think now it's been the issue's been worked out, and it's a good compromise. I think it will improve the notice of motion process, and allow. I think it would be better for everybody involved, to be honest. But other members may disagree. Do we have any more questions? I understand that Alex would had his hand up. Any more questions about that? No. Okay. Alex, was there something that you wanted to move?
No.
Okay. Well, in that case, would someone like to move the staff recommendation?
I do.
It was Joe got a hand up first. Moved by Joe, seconded by Celeste. I'll just say briefly that I do think this is a good compromise, and appreciate that you care about this, Alex. It's good. Yeah. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Abstain.
Carried.
Noted.
And would like it to stay. All right. I wish everybody was as passionate about standing orders as we are. So now we move on to, that was item number 13. So we're on to number 14, which is the super local conference, and the question is simply that the board funds Jackie to attend.
I move.
Moved by Tim and seconded by Celeste. Any debate? No. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And number 15 is our, as usual, amazing area report that details an incredible amount of work that goes on.
Yeah, there's 120 pages.
Sorry.
No, don't. Do not apologise. Every month I'm just like, this is incredible. You guys get through an incredible amount of work with such an incredible number of people. So, Chris, was there anything you wanted to draw our attention to?
Not particularly. I think the only thing that's probably different from previous area reports is it's we've got the ward profiles included in there, so they were all emailed to the board ahead of the area report going out anyway. So just
Thanks for those.
yeah, just acknowledging the team's work in there, because there's a heap of work that goes into that, both from the local team, but also from one of the managers that helps with all the stats and formatting and stuff. So they're really useful. They're used throughout the organisation, from other units using them. I know members of community use them as well. So no, they're good profiles. Otherwise, it's just a good report from the team.
Yep. All right. Question from Alex.
Yeah, how many people does this go out to?
The area
in terms of the
report.
mailing list? I guess people and organisations.
And
Yeah.
do you mean like sorry to interrupt you there, Chris. Do you mean the link to the agenda? Who do I email that out to?
Do we not send out the area reports separately?
No, so it goes with the agenda.
Agendas as well. So okay, that's my question.
Right. Any further questions, Joe, and then Yanni?
Just in regard to the Cypress tickets, I've had a few people comment to me that some of the tickets have come bouncing back saying this isn't a council asset. And they're not putting the ticket in again because they don't feel it's up to them to actually follow it through. And I'm just wondering, do we record once it bounced back, or what do we do about those?
So if they get a reply saying if it's not a council asset,
yeah.
So then it would probably be on the responsibility of the person who's put it in. So say it was, I can't think of an example, but if it was private property or something else, it would be up to probably them to figure out.
There's quite a few graffiti ones, and I've had it happen to myself too, where I've sent it to Orion and they have said, no, this is for council, but council say, no, this is Orion. And people just give up. so they're stopping reporting. So I'm just wondering if there's something that we can do, or if there's a record of that.
There was something a while back where nobody knew who was responsible for. I forget what it was now. I think it was ended up in chorus or something, but.
Well, I've done a couple of green boxes and council send them back because they don't know who they belong to. And it's like, well, who's responsible for them? But
with the graffiti ones, I'll have a chat because the overall manager of the graffiti team, he'll be at a meeting with me tomorrow, so I'll have a chat with him about those. But if you've got any other examples non-graffiti, maybe if you just email them through, because I would have thought with the graffiti ones, because it's been a lot on the volunteer basis, they would still, especially if it's offensive, they would fix it up. So I'll take a note to have a chat to him around the graffiti, but if you've got any other sort of instances, maybe just send them through so we can follow up how best.
yeah, no, they're cool.
They're directed from the graffiti team.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking, but they dealt with it.
Even when it comes to other things like rubbish or broken fences or something, can the council not actually help the resident and actually
It becomes
following it up themselves?
Yeah, that's exactly what Cindy's saying, especially when it comes down to private property. It's more of a civil matter. It wouldn't, but you'd have to imagine with council's resources being able to intervene in private matters. It's probably outside of our scope.
And I think some of it might be like NZTA, like roadside and.
Yeah, I'm only guessing because it's outside of our area, but it would come down to resourcing and being able to essentially solving other people's problems becomes quite tricky. But I know what you're saying for community. It looks like it's just one issue. They don't really care whose issue it is. But yeah.
Well, they're residents trying to help improve the city and do what they think's right, but then we're not helping them.
It is a general like thing. It's like when none of the public entities are taking responsibility, unless it's on private property, but it doesn't, like, people don't, well, not true that people don't necessarily have things like that on their property, but they won't be their responsibility. You know what I mean? So but what is the mechanism for sorting something like that out?
Is that kind of ticket included in the high-risk report?
As in tickets that are
kind of bounce back to the people?
I don't actually know. I don't know if there's a category for it to say, essentially not council.
That's right, category.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, and then Alex. And then Greg.
I noted in the wording that East, there's no mention of the long regeneration plan. So the board last got briefed in November. And we were told that the next step was a briefing to council. But I still have no date for that briefing and no clear understanding of what the next milestones are. So is there any information that we have as a community board? We gave feedback.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry, I was distracted by something.
The long regeneration plan. We had a board briefing, but we've had no update since the board briefing, and the next steps, which were a report to council, a briefing to council, has still not occurred.
There was some there was some silo issues, and that is, so my awareness is that they needed to sort out exactly what different parts of council were doing on that. It seems like, yeah, so that's a diplomatic way of putting it. But I don't know about any timeframes.
Yeah, so you had a reply from the head of planning last week. So as Marcus said, they're trying to align their program along with weaving these, because one of the things, and again, the regen program's not ours, so I don't want to speak for them, but one of their next steps is also talking with community around what some of their desires are so that they can continue with the plan. But as you know, with weaving these, we're also going through a phase or getting to the stage of interviewing community. So what we want to avoid is doubling up talking to community. So when Soan's doing those interviews with community, the plan is to provide the feedback from those to that team so that they can start using that to develop within their plan. So I think you've been given that information already. I don't think there's anything else that,
But I think the key thing is that it was supposed to come to council for a briefing, it still hasn't done.
Mm.
So there's no clear milestones or even clear outline of process. The concern that I've got is that we're doing our budget next week, and there's a number of projects in the Linwood that people have no idea about how they all fit together. And there'll be no further engagement on some of them. They'll just be done to the community once the budgets are approved. And that's really concerning, particularly around places like Linwood Park, where there's still outstanding resolutions to get a master plan and a holistic plan for Linwood Park, which we still don't have. But yet, the training sheds are being constructed now. There's all sorts of issues with some of the sports clubs around lighting or facilities. So I'm just wondering, like, and Chelsea Street's another one where we'll be asked to make a decision soon without any understanding of how that cycleways go through and connect. So
the two comments that I'd probably make on there is the briefing to council, likely, again, I don't want to speak for them, it's not going to be any different to what you've received here, because it's essentially quite a local project because it relates to the board area. So you would have had what they're planning on presenting, but also within, if I remember back to that briefing, it's quite a tight area. So some of those projects that are broader that you're talking about are probably outside the scope of what they're looking at. It was quite tight around sort of, I can't remember the zone on the map, but it's quite a narrow scope. So one of the things, because obviously it's called Linwood, the scope of whether it's Linwood Ward or Linwood Suburb or where it sits. So it's around understanding the maps from that briefing of the zone that they're talking about. But yeah, so I think one of the key things they're working alongside us in terms of the discussion with community and aligning with Weaving the East. But outside of that, I can't really talk where their project's at.
But they didn't really have a defined area. They had just a high level heat plants like gold.
Well, I'm not sure we're gonna, I think it seems like something that's quite, given that this isn't on the agenda, and there's nothing really in the report that
that was originally what led to my question around Weaving the East. There's no reference to it in Weaving the East. But
that's because of those issues that I mentioned earlier, that needs sorting out, much to my annoyance. Not at you, but at that.
So the other thing is, I did manage to get a response around what resources are available. Is $20,000, which I don't think will go very far towards doing this plan. And one of the proposals in the budget is actually to reduce funding in planning. So that's seen as a cost saving. So I'm increasingly concerned that there'll be insufficient resources to actually get this plan underway, getting to the next step. I'm just wondering if staff have been given any information additional about how this project can be resourced.
The regen project.
Yeah.
Well, so I would encourage all three councillors sitting here to support ensuring that planning is there for projects in the east.
Yeah, I think the problem is that because it comes under a program level budget, we don't actually make that call. So but I'm mindful of the money that was spent on flood response, millions with we're struggling to get basic resources to do stuff that's really important.
So anyway. Can we, like, if the money is explicitly put as an item in the annual plan, then the money will be there. Currently it's a program level budget, but you guys are able to secure the funding for such a project. So if you can, that will be good. And as long as it works with Weaving the East and the rest of the stuff that we're trying to do, and not going reconsulting the same people over and over again, then that would be great.
Sorry, just the other question I had around the Wolfstone newsletter. Did we get a copy of that? I might have missed
the what? Sorry,
the Wolfstone newsletter, or is it possible to get a copy circulated? That's great that staff are doing that. It's good to.
Has the Worcester newsletter, Emily, has the first one gone out? I can't remember.
We just launched it, so we had a couple of groups come forward with some news stories. So I want to make sure we included those. So Tim's working away on it.
Yeah, awesome. We're looking forward to receiving it.
Yeah, so the board will definitely get it.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Any more Alex
Yeah,
and
just-
then Greg.
I can real quick, just in relation to hybris, I got two concerns at the moment that are coming up quite a lot. And I mean, individual stuff I know we can raise with you, but maybe this is a good time to do it. First of all, when we've got reports going through to council staff, there are quite a lot of cases I had where they're not actually closing the ticket. And it's like pedantic stuff, but if you're a resident and you see something, you don't go back past it, you don't know if it's been resolved. I think there's a lot more that can be done in regards to closing the cases, to restoring the trust. People in council, because right now they go, oh, look, I've got 30 cases on snaps and sold that haven't been resolved, when really they have been. So stuff like that really undermines, I guess, people's trust in councils, just making sure we can pass that message. The other one I had is, I just, this is a specific one, but it's an issue that people are continuing to have. Potholes, we're told that in most cases, 72 hours to repair. I've got ones that are sitting there that have been there for 2 months. I know that individually re-raised them, but that's well outside of the 72-hour timeline. So is there somewhere we can raise broader things like this, or is it still just individually fire each one through?
Absolutely, and if they're not resolved within a timely manner, so for example, like you said, we know it's meant to be a 72-day turnaround, because sometimes with these weather events, we'll have a backlog. So we can expect a delay sometimes, but 2 months doesn't seem like a good use of time. So I would suggest that you escalate that using the CS team leader's email that was emailed to the board as per the process.
Yeah.
And then that team leader will then fire that off to the relevant unit for them to look into and investigate.
As part of that, do they identify whether or not there's any other cases of potentially quite a lot of these things happening and not being solved?
I am not sure.
I believe that Councillor Barber has something to offer here.
I've been asking similar questions. So in terms of pothole fixes, any jobs done at this time of the year are temporary jobs. And they only do them in the summer months. So often if you see a pothole and 3 weeks later, it's.
But by law, they're required to do it within 72 hours. So that's, I guess, where I'm coming from.
Well, that's only on NZTA.
Yeah, NZTA is right.
Yeah, but as far as the ones that we take away, we don't actually do permanent solutions until the work comes right, because they can just.
Yeah, I acknowledge. Yeah, thank you. These are cases where there have been any measures at all. And I think although it's NZTA, it's also Christchurch City Council roads, where it's guidelines from the government in terms of local authorities having to do it within that time frame. So it's also CCC roads.
Are they cases that have been actually reported?
Yeah. All
right.
So just escalate what you've got.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other? Greg and then Celeste.
Every month that pops up that really doesn't seem to be the top of the list. Is there anything being done around, I mean, bins not being collected, houses aren't shifting, so surely the same routes being done each week. Are they the same places that are being missed, or I don't know, it just seems there's a lot of really big issues every month.
It's a really big issue.
It's a really big issue. But it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Is there steps being taken to try and remedy some of it?
I can't, so obviously it's not our. I can guess at a variety of reasons.
But it's 100,000 bins times 2 a week.
Do we have
I've got a vague idea.
And it's gone down by 17 this month, just saying.
So is this a hypothesis or some?
No. I actually have had a number of occasions in Preston Park where wheelie bins have not been collected. If you report it straight away, it's in the contract with the contractor that they must go back and do it. But you have to contact them within sort of 12 hours, I think, the rule is to let them know. And it's part of their contract that they must go back and collect them. So areas consistently get missed all across the city. They change drivers, all sorts of things happen. So there you go.
I can confirm that the process does work.
It does.
The other side of town as well as this one.
All right. Celeste.
The question around the annual plan, because council adopting that, that's about the board part.
It's sorry, I just is it what is the this we're about the board is there something in the report?
The area report.
The area report, not that because it's not that. Because we can go to the next item, which is members' information exchange. But if it's an annual plan issue, it's probably yeah, it may not be that our local staff can answer the question. Yeah.
So just go to something in the report. There's something in the report that refers to like when a tree, the wrong tree type is planted and it cracks the pavement and eventually they get removed. Is there numbers around those sort of removals, tree removals? Because it's quite a common thing. I'm finding that in a certain era of time, they planted a whole bunch of trees and it's cracking the pavement, and instead of actually, dare I say it, remove the tree, they're actually just going and patching it repeatedly, and obviously it's going to get worse. So we're just not clear on what the numbers are and whether we should actually be a bit more proactive around some of that stuff. So it feels like it's a little bit of a waste of money patching up something. Trees, not the right species for that particular location.
It's obviously something I can't answer based on the report.
Are we able, so I can't request information to this.
Yeah, I'll allow that one, but
Okay.
it's,
It was on margins.
yeah, and I guess you can. Well, I'm sure that staff will be able to get back to you.
So this isn't an isolated thing. This has been going on for a long time, and predominantly it's with the newer subdivisions. Before they are vested in council, there have been no conversations as such in relation to species. And now we're a few years down the line and they're becoming an issue. I know it doesn't just happen in subdivision, it happens on some other roads as trees get bigger and older. Pardon?
Emmett Street.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I don't know if I think that there was some talk back a few years back where staff were definitely going to be more involved with that part of the process with the new subdivisions, but I can't wholeheartedly speak to that. However, just for the reporting side, as per the area report, I don't know if there is a specific option tracked path due to tree route. But I'm not sure. So I think
I don't think it's broken down like that. You know, so I pulled out a report on the leaks and noise complaints because they're very defined. I think what you're looking for will be way too specific. What I can draw out of high risk, but also you're looking at something that's probably a citywide issue rather than local.
Yeah, interesting, just finally on that, because with about a year and a half ago, the question was, if you remove a tree here, where do the replacement trees go? And after pulling that thread for about a year and a half, it was discovered that there was no record of the trees going in and out. Seems a bit of an oversight.
There should be. It's our tree policy.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to find out, maybe not through this process, whether we can actually get a bit more information about that, because I feel like there's.
I think, like Chris said, that metropolitan.
It's looking at a policy issue.
That's community.
No.
Supposed to report to community board every year.
Yes, no, but the issue, policy is a strategic citywide issue in terms of implementation of policy. That we want the information. So it's both, right? We want the information, but the reason we're not getting the information isn't because of it's no community board's getting information as far as we're aware.
I think they've changed the way they're reporting that, so it'll be interesting to find out if we can now get that reported back to us, because then we can advocate to change the policy. If we don't, it's anecdotal at the moment.
So if you could keep pulling that thread, that would be good. All right, so I believe that Alex, is this a
I just wanted to clarify my previous
related to things that are in the report
specifically.
Okay.
Related to my conversation about potholes before, I said it was NZTA guidelines. It's not, but it's council guidelines. If it's on an arterial route, it's 24 hours, no potholes. It's on a sorry, I've got it back. I've got it here. I've got a big table ahead of me. So if it's accessway, low volume roads, walkways, accessway, footpaths, service lanes, malls, separated cycleways, response time 72 hours from when it's logged. Primary collector or secondary collector roads is 48 hours. Regional arterial routes 24 hours. So just so everyone knows.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. And I would like someone to move the received report.
So happy to move it.
Is this just one more?
Yeah.
Does it have sub questions?
No.
Okay.
In regards to
primary question.
The Heathcote River planting plan. I don't know if the board was briefed on it before it got released for consultation, but regardless, it's great that that work is proposed. The question I have though is that in some areas there's a bigger impact than others. And in some areas there's been protection of view shafts and others there hasn't. I did ask if it was possible to do walkabouts with local residents to just have someone explain what the outcome of the planting would be. And I think that was
We were briefed on.
declined. So
as far as
yeah, it may have been a briefing that I missed.
And a memo.
So we got the memo, yeah, got the memo. So I'm just wondering, is there a way that we can do some localised engagement, particularly with like things like the South East Wilston Residents Association, for example, and actually do a walkabout with the community to kind of, in an arborist, to explain what the proposals are? Because it is quite challenging when you look at it to actually understand visually what the impact will be on your area.
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, obviously, so you're part of the South East Wilston Residents Association, so that's something you can chat to Emily about and raise there. In terms of, so are you looking just for a site? What are you looking for so that we can ask that?
There's always lots of interest in the local community when there's walking, like heritage, walking tours or walking festival where people walk along the river. And there's a number of volunteers, people involved in the Lower Eastgate Guidance Plan, for example, that are quite active, like Laura Kim, for example. I guess what I would hope that we could do as a board is maybe just coordinate a walk along the river with an arborist to explain to the community the tree planting proposals.
Well, sorry, what was that?
I don't know if it's point of order, but this is word for word what's been just asked in the email that went to the entire board. So I'm not sure if it's the best resource if we're litigating anything we've sent to the email.
It was rejected and the board hasn't had a chance.
Well, the thing is, but I think it was, so I think that like it's a very long stretch of river, but as I think I said in the email, it would be good to if we could talk to the River Network and the South East Wilston Residents Association. Like we don't have any. That's the only part of that area that we have a group there, and there's the Wilston Wellbeing Network. Like if it's something that people do want, then cool. But it is. I feel like I need to see a bit. There would need to be a bit more to go on than just we think that it might be cool for some people. And also, doesn't it give effect to the implementation plan? The advice that we've been provided is that it gives effect to the implementation plan.
Yeah, I was just opening it.
Yeah, like in some areas, but because you've just got these kind of colours, so things like in some areas they'll be concerned about the height. In other areas, like along Richardson Terrace, for example, Jackie might wish to comment, but you've actually got an issue with the grass. There's been flooding damage, hasn't been fixed, was fixed, then got removed. So some of the residents there that I've dealt with, for example, have wanted that bank, tidied up and improved at the same time. But so if you're just doing planting, it's kind of unclear as to the scope, but walking with the residents along, I think would be useful. But if people don't want to do it, so I can just engage.
I mean, and it's not. I don't think it's that people don't want to do it. It's that when you say the residents, I don't like. I know that again, South East residents, cool. That would be good to do with that specific group. But I don't know what you're meaning. And I wouldn't want to get in the way of something good like that happening, but there seems like it could be something like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Right. So shall we a mover of the report?
Seconded.
And seconded by Tim. Motion will now be put. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, thank you. Now we move to a final item, which is members' information exchange. A reminder that this isn't this is a place for us to share information and not for lodging things. You're allowed to ask questions here that but not about things that are unrelated to our job as board members. I think Joe was first.
I just see that tomorrow you might be discussing the Sigmund Street pipeline in an information centre at councillors. I just want you to know how important it is for our beach community and the flooding marine parade. So if you can do anything to actually help other councillors understand, it would be really appreciated.
Cool. Celeste.
Two quick ones. The Lions Club had this volunteer week, which is June, I think. 21st of June. There's issue clean-up at the Southern Broden Community Hall from 10 to 12, and there's a sausage sizzle. Let me see your weekend. And the other one is just around the annual plan. Do we ever get, because I know the board said these are our priorities in terms of renewals and things, but we never got visibility of that. So how do we know if we want to advocate to bring things forward in the annual plan? I'm not quite sure what the process is.
You would have received a copy of the board submission.
I think, yeah, I did, thank you. The ones though that we spent a bit of time was saying, these are the hard asset renewals, these are the other renewals. And then there was the year 2 to 5, I think, that we could potentially tweak. But then we sort of give the feedback, but then it disappears into the vacuum of information and we never get anything back. So we don't know if anything's changed in terms of those budgets. So do we ever get anything back on that?
Ideally, that would have been the outcome, like we did with Park.
Yeah.
When then you guys negotiate a little bit more and but we actually didn't get anything back from Transport. So my advice would be to go back through the Office of the Chief Executive or whoever's dealing with the annual plan queries. I presume it's through the Office of the Chief Executive.
Yeah, I think so.
And just say like the community board as a whole provided feedback, as did all the other community boards. So it's not just isolated to us. We all provided a long list in relation to transport priorities. Where are they at? Where's our responses and or where do they fit into this draft annual plan?
Yes,
I think
did raise
that's not something that I'm able to get an answer for. That's predominantly in town.
I thought maybe I'd missed it or something. Yeah.
No.
And then the only other one is through the annual plan. One of the questions that came up through feedback was around looking at providing some additional car parking to West Oaks Hall. If you don't know where that is, it's on Seaview Road. It's part of the Pages Road Bridge project. We were removing the on-street car parking coming those because he's on the hearing panel. And we did ask for advice on whether we could take a bit of land on behind the hall and turn it to car parking, because we did look at all the options for land. We were told at the time that wasn't an option. Quite clear why that wasn't an option then and when it is now, but regardless, we've got the opportunity now to look at maybe allocating a wee bit of budget, and also the green strip, which would be a pedestrian thoroughfare. So Youth Alike Trust came and spoke to the board, and the custodian of the hall, Chris, spoke to the board. So that's maybe something that would be considered as part of the annual plan process, whether we could look at doing something there, because ultimately when we remove the on-street car parking, we'll be back to square one and trying to find a way to add in some car parking. So now's the chance we can do that, just to future-proof that whole discussion of the annual plan.
And just a reminder to councillors that our top priority in terms of transport was the Bromley traffic plan, actually, in the annual plan for that. Joe.
Just in relation to the West Oaks car parking, I watched the discussion about that online, and there was mention about using the possible usage of the car park next to the museum, but that is not owned by the museum, just to let you know. That is actually privately owned by the shops across the road from the museum.
We looked at that as part of the hearings panel mention, so we've already ruled that one out.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. Yanni.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the Linwood Library for doing their cup of tea sessions, and it's quite cool that they really go out their way to bring people into the library and explain the different things that they do. And the story, the digital screen with the good work at Canterbury Stories, and then showing people around. It did raise a question in my mind though, like with the impact of the South Library being shut, is there any additional information we can get around what support we could give to the Linwood Library as a council. My understanding is that they've had an increased number of usage of people coming in, and so I just wondered if there was any way that we could maybe get an update from the library about how the operations is going, and whether there was any support, additional support that we could advocate for to support the good work that they do.
So obviously, after this, you have to email through those questions because info exchange is just about what you're ending working on rather than requesting info. So obviously I can't answer those questions here.
Do we have a scheduled update from library staff, like to the community board around the different things happening in our libraries? Is there
I don't think we've got anything sort of planned. I don't think they do a rolling program of coming out to brief the boards, but if that's something the board are interested in, then if you send it through, then Cindy can work with the team to get you an update.
I don't know how I'll afford this, but I personally think it might be quite a good thing to do, given the really good work that libraries do in our community. It'd be good to hear from them about what the issues are that they see in our boards area.
Just going back to that, and I don't want to extend a conversation about this again, but going back to the, if there is demand from a residents association or something around a planting plan for some kind of meeting with the arborist or something, there's no reason why it isn't possible. It's just we need to define it more than being walking tour with residents. Like how does it look? Who's going to do it? All those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else? Nope. Or in that case, we will close the meeting. If you'd like to join me, kia tau, te rangi Māori o te rangi e tu I honei, o Papatuanuku I taku tōnei, o te taeao e awhi nei, ki runga I a tātou, tihei mauriota.